All right, let's jump into another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at Chinese Foo Dogs.
Oh, yeah.
I know this is something that you've been wanting to explore further, and you
Yes.
sent me some really cool research, especially on their symbolic meaning
Yeah.
and those male and female pairs, the distinct differences. I have to admit, I'm intrigued.
They're really fascinating, aren't they? I mean,
Yeah.
what I find so captivating about these foo dogs, or as they're also known, guardian lions,
Right?
is that they're so much more than just decoration.
Right.
They really are a visual embodiment of Chinese culture and philosophy and even their evolving global position.
Okay, so where should we begin unraveling this?
Yeah.
I mean, the research you sent over seemed to center around like a scholarly excerpt
Right.
that's really dissecting their symbolic meaning.
Yeah.
But what about just the basics?
Yeah. Let's ground ourselves in the fundamentals.
Okay.
First off, we always see foo dogs in pairs, right?
Yeah.
They're stationed at the entrances of significant structures, like temples and palaces and even homes.
Right, those iconic guardians.
Yes.
And I guess since we're talking about guardians, it's no surprise that lions were chosen for this, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
They're considered the fiercest of beasts, so naturally embodying that strength and protection.
Exactly. And one of the sources that you sent over, actually,
Okay.
Oswald Siren's 1925 article
Oh, wow.
called A Chinese Stone Lion,
Okay.
he really digs into this,
Okay.
their early role as protectors of tombs.
Huh.
He describes how during the Han Dynasty, foo dogs were often carved with wings,
Oh, wings. That's interesting.
which symbolized a journey to the afterlife.
Oh, so from safeguarding the journey to the afterlife,
Yeah.
their protective role kind of expanded to more earthly domains?
Precisely. Their presence at entryways
Okay.
symbolized guarding against any kind of negative energy or threat, whether it be spiritual or physical.
That makes sense. But there's more to it than just their placement and that fierce appearance.
Right.
We can't overlook the symbolism that's tied to those male and female pairings.
Oh, absolutely not. This is where the concept of yin and yang becomes essential.
Okay.
You'll recall those male foo dogs, typically with a paw resting on an ornate ball.
The one that always makes me think world domination.
That's the one. The research points to a multi-layered meaning here.
Okay.
The ball represents not just the world, but also the power and dominance associated with traditional masculinity
Yeah.
and the rise of Chinese civilization.
Okay. And naturally, the female foo dog offers a counterpoint to that.
Absolutely. She's often depicted with a paw gently resting on a cub.
Right.
She embodies yin, representing nurturing, motherhood, and the protection and caretaking traditionally associated with femininity.
So it's this really fascinating interplay of symbolism and philosophy and cultural norms all wrapped up in these stone guardians.
And that interplay is beautifully illuminated. In Robin R. Wang's Dong Zhongshu's transformation of yin-yang theory and contesting of gender identity.
This Don Zongshu fellow sounds like he had some interesting ideas.
He did. But what's important for our deep dive today is how his work really highlights the pervasiveness of yin and yang in Chinese thought.
Oh,
I mean, the foo dogs are a perfect example.
okay.
They're not just decorative, but they're embodiments of a philosophical principle
Right.
that really shapes everything from cosmology to gender roles.
It's incredible how these statues, I feel like we often take them for granted as just simple decorations. They actually reflect such profound concepts.
It's true. And speaking of profound concepts,
Okay.
that ball under the male foo dog's paw takes on an entirely new dimension
Okay.
when we consider China's history and recent rise to power.
Okay. Now you've got me really curious. How does that connect?
Well, remember, China's historical struggles with Western imperialism, something Christopher A. Ford explores in his book, China Looks at the West. For centuries, they were forced to react to the West,
Right.
to find their footing amidst these external pressures.
Right. So they weren't exactly dictating world events.
Not quite, but in recent decades, that's clearly changed, right?
Clearly, it has, yes.
China has undergone an extraordinary transformation, becoming a global economic and political powerhouse.
Yeah.
And this newfound prominence has, for some, subtly shifted the meaning of that foo dog, especially that ball.
So it's no longer just about historical dominance.
Right.
Are we looking at a symbol that now embodies China's current ambition and influence on the world stage?
You're catching on quickly.
Huh.
Some scholars argue that the ball now also represents China's Belt and Road Initiative,
Oh, wow.
which is this massive infrastructure project with global reach.
Okay.
It's a symbol that really speaks to China's proactive role in shaping global affairs.
Wow, talk about a visual metaphor.
Yeah.
It's almost as if those ancient Foo Dogs are mirroring China's own journey, moving from a reactive stance to one of outward influence.
Precisely. It highlights how these ancient symbols can be remarkably fluid,
Right.
reflecting the dynamism of the culture they represent.
And that makes the whole tattoo trend even more interesting, right?
Oh, tell me about it.
My brother, who is, very connected to his Asian heritage,
Yeah.
he recently got a Foo Dog tattoo.
Oh, wow.
I mean, do you think there's a link between this renewed interest in Foo Dog imagery
Yeah.
and China's global ascendance?
That's a thought-provoking question,
Yeah.
and one we should definitely explore further.
Okay.
It certainly adds another layer to the conversation
Yeah.
about cultural symbols and how their meaning can evolve across generations.
It seems like we've only just scratched the surface of this topic.
Oh, for sure.
There's so much to unpack, from the symbolism of the male and female Foo Dogs
Yeah,
to this fascinating connection with China's place in the world.
absolutely.
I can't wait to dive deeper into your research and
Yeah.
see what other insights we can uncover.
I'm with you on that. Let's delve further into the specific details of your research and see what we discover together.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that the symbolism of these Foo Dogs ties in closely with the Chinese philosophy of yin and yang,
Oh, yeah.
since we're kind of exploring their deeper meaning.
Yeah.
Can we unpack that concept a bit further?
Absolutely. Yin and yang is really a cornerstone of Chinese thought.
Okay.
It represents the inherent duality and interconnectedness of existence. So it's not about opposites, but rather
Right.
complementary forces
Okay.
that are constantly interacting and in flux.
Okay.
So think light and dark, masculine and feminine, action and stillness, all expressions of this fundamental principle.
So it's not a battle between opposing forces, but more like a dance.
Yeah.
Each one needs the other to exist.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
And the Foo Dogs, with their male and female pairing,
Yeah.
beautifully embodied in this concept.
Okay.
The male, with his paw on the ball, represents yang, assertive, outward-focused, embodying that dynamic energy.
Right.
While the female, often depicted with a cub,
Right.
embodies yin, receptive, nurturing, and focused on inner harmony.
And the source material actually connects this to the way they're believed to protect. Right?
Exactly. The research suggests that the male Foo Dog's roar,
Okay.
representing that active yang energy,
Right.
is meant to scare away evil spirits and negative forces.
Okay.
In contrast, the female's quiet protectiveness embodies the receptive yin, nurturing and safeguarding those within the space.
It's fascinating how even the way they're believed to protect reflects this fundamental balance.
It is.
But we've also touched on how these statues embody traditional gender roles in Chinese society.
Right.
And wasn't there something in the research about that?
Yes. There's a section in the excerpt that connects the Foo Dogs to the Confucian ideal of social harmony,
Okay.
which is also deeply rooted in yin and yang.
Right.
The male Foo Dog, with his dominance and connection to the world, reflects the traditional expectation of men as providers and protectors,
Okay.
the outward-facing force of the family.
And the female, safeguarding the cub,
Yes,
mirrors the expectation of women as nurturers and caregivers,
exactly.
maintaining harmony within the home.
Precisely. And it's important to remember that these traditional roles are
Right.
constantly evolving, but the symbolism embedded within the Foo Dogs provides a glimpse
Right.
into how those roles were perceived and valued within Chinese culture.
It's like these statues are time capsules,
Yeah.
offering insights not only into ancient beliefs, but also how those beliefs have shaped cultural norms and expectations.
It is. It is.
It makes me wonder, thinking about those evolving gender roles.
Yeah.
What does that signify for the symbolism of the Foo Dogs going forward?
That's a fascinating question. Perhaps we'll see a shift in their representation
Okay.
to reflect more modern interpretations of gender roles
Okay.
and family dynamics.
Or maybe their traditional symbolism will remain, serving as a reminder of those historical roots while simultaneously prompting us to examine
Right.
how those roles have transformed over time,
Exactly. And let's not forget the modern trend we touched on earlier, Foo Dog tattoos.
right?
Your brother's tattoo, in particular, piqued my curiosity.
Yeah.
What do you think drew him to this symbol?
Well, he's always been drawn to powerful imagery.
Yeah.
and he's very proud of his Asian heritage.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for him, it's a way to connect with that heritage visually
Okay.
and carry that sense of strength and protection with him.
I see. That sense of personal connection
Yeah.
seems to be a driving force behind the growing popularity of Foo Dog tattoos, especially among younger generations.
Right, and it goes beyond just aesthetics, doesn't it?
It does.
There's a deliberate choice to embrace this symbol,
Yeah.
to reclaim it as a powerful representation of cultural identity.
Exactly. And in a world that's increasingly globalized and interconnected,
Right.
these symbols can serve as anchors,
Mm-hmm.
reminding us of our roots and the cultural legacies that shape who we are.
So is it possible that the resurgence of Foo Dog imagery,
Yeah.
whether in tattoos or art or even fashion,
Mm-hmm.
is a reaction to this globalization?
It could be.
A way to hold on to something unique and meaningful
Yeah.
in a world that can sometimes feel homogenized.
That's a compelling argument.
Yeah.
And it speaks to the power of symbols to provide a sense of belonging and identity,
Mm-hmm.
especially in a rapidly changing world.
We've discussed the traditional interpretations and the modern resurgence.
Right.
But I'm curious, are there any other interesting interpretations of the Foo Dog symbolism out there?
Well, some scholars argue that their placement at entrances
Okay.
also symbolizes a transition point,
Okay.
a threshold between the mundane and the sacred,
Mm-hmm.
the outside world, and the protected inner space.
Okay.
It's almost like they're inviting us to step into a realm where different rules apply,
Right,
where
yeah.
we can shed the weight of the outside world and connect with something deeper.
That's a beautiful way to think about it.
Yeah,
It almost adds a spiritual dimension to their role as protectors,
it does.
not just guarding against physical or spiritual threats, but also guiding us towards a more mindful and intentional way of being.
Exactly. And it reminds us that symbols can hold multiple layers of meaning,
Mm-hmm.
inviting us to explore different perspectives and interpretations.
This deep dive has been incredibly enlightening.
It has been.
We've uncovered so much about the history, the philosophy, and the cultural significance of the Foo Dogs.
Mm.
And I'm sure there's even more to discover.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's left us with some compelling questions to ponder.
Absolutely.
Wow, it feels like we've journeyed through centuries with these Foo
I
Dogs.
know, right?
From ancient tombs to modern tattoos.
It's amazing.
It's incredible how these seemingly simple statues have opened up
I know.
such a rich conversation about history and philosophy and culture.
It is. And what's particularly fascinating, I think, is their ability to resonate across generations.
Mhm.
You know, we've explored how their symbolism reflects China's evolving role in the world,
Right,
but their meaning also seems to shift
right.
on a more personal level,
Mm-hmm.
depending on who's looking at them.
You're right. And thinking about all the different interpretations we've discussed,
Yeah.
I keep coming back to my brother's tattoo.
Oh, yeah.
It's clearly more than just a cool design for him.
Right.
It represents like a connection to his heritage,
Yeah,
a sense of strength, maybe even a statement about his own identity.
exactly. That personal connection is so crucial.
Yeah.
And it speaks to a broader trend we're seeing with cultural symbols.
Okay.
It's like they're being reclaimed,
Mhm.
infused with new meaning by each generation that encounters them.
I wonder if that's part of what makes these deep dives so intriguing.
Oh, could be.
It's not just about uncovering facts,
Right.
but also about understanding how those facts connect to our own lives,
Exactly.
our own experiences.
It's about finding those aha moments
Mm.
where a seemingly distant historical artifact
Right.
suddenly feels relevant and meaningful.
Yeah.
And with Foo Dogs, those moments seem to be everywhere.
Everywhere indeed. We've talked about their traditional role as protectors,
Right.
their connection to yin and yang,
Mm-hmm.
and even their potential as a symbol of China's modern aspirations.
Yes.
And of course, there's the whole tattoo phenomenon, which
Yeah.
in itself seems to be a conversation starter about cultural identity and representation.
Oh, absolutely. It's a testament to the power of symbols to transcend time and geographic boundaries.
Yeah.
You know, they can simultaneously reflect ancient traditions
Right.
and speak to contemporary issues,
Yeah.
bridging that gap between past and present.
Before we wrap up, I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
that idea of Foo Dogs representing a transition point,
Right.
a threshold between the ordinary and the sacred.
It's an interpretation that really adds another layer of depth to their protective role,
Okay.
suggesting they're not just guarding physical spaces, but also serving as guides
Mm-hmm.
into a different state of mind.
So, as we cross the threshold of a home or temple, guarded by these lions,
Yeah.
we're also crossing a symbolic threshold, leaving behind the worries and distractions of the outside world.
That's one way to look at it.
Okay.
And it reminds us that even in our modern, fast-paced world,
Yeah.
there's still a need for these symbolic markers, these reminders to slow down,
Okay.
to be present,
Yeah.
and to connect with something larger than ourselves.
It's almost like they're inviting us to pause
Yeah.
and consider what we're bringing into that space, both
Yes.
physically and mentally.
Precisely, and perhaps that's a key takeaway from our deep dive into the world of food dogs.
Okay.
They encourage us to be more mindful,
Yeah.
more aware of the symbolism that surrounds us, and more curious about the stories those symbols have to tell.
That's a beautiful note to end on.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling inspired to look at the world with a newfound appreciation
Me too.
for the hidden meanings in stories. Yeah.
Embedded in everyday objects and traditions.
Absolutely.
And with that, we'll bid you farewell, dear listener.
Yes.
We hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to keep exploring the rich tapestry of symbols and meaning that surrounds us.
Absolutely.
Until next time, happy exploring.
Bye.